Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 American Express DFS Tactics show. First off, I need to give a thank you to longtime viewer and subscriber P, letting me know Monday evening that the shows weren't coming up and giving the subscribers notifications that I was live, and the videos were kind of getting tucked away. So I think I have fixed those settings for those of you who have subscribed and continually come back. I believe I have set those settings that you should be notified that I'm live. But thank you, P, for giving me that information and letting me know. We have a lot to get into. Lots of lineups to generate. There's a lot of chalk on the price board. But I also want to know, what kind of wagers have you made this week for the American Express? I've made quite a few. My betting card will be out later after the show. But let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best tool out there. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler, much better DFS player. Go check them out. It's simply well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media, Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter and Instagram is where I post my research that I find throughout the week. Definitely put some out Monday morning or early afternoon. So if you did not see that, go ahead and give me a follow there. Not anything too crazy this week. Since the American Express went to this specific 3-course rotation, pretty random in terms of winners, at least when we were trying to establish a pattern. But whatever I did find, I did put on Twitter. So if you want to see that, give me a follow there. Twitch is where I do a lot of the in-depth research. It's also where a lot of my other content, say gaming or baseball, will be. So if you want to see that, give me a follow over there. And then Twitter is also where I'm going to be posting my betting card tonight, as I do every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the wagers that I've put in for the week, give me a follow over at Twitter. And then finally, we're live. Chat's open. Like I said, I want to hear from you all. What wagers have you made, if any, for this week? What lineups or style of lineups are you trending towards? Who are your top plays? Who are your top fades? Anybody in the 6Ks that draw your attention? All of that. And of course, if you have any lineup questions, this player versus that player, or if you want to see some theory upon lineups, put it in chat. But let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 American Express. And we're going to start over at Windfinder. And I am able to get the super forecast up for you all. So as you can see, tomorrow, beautiful. Chilly, high of 59, but beautiful in terms of weather conditions. Not a lot of wind, not a lot of gusts. Friday, there does look to be an amount of wind that comes into the forecast, early afternoon and then dissipating throughout the day. But I think the biggest factor will be, you can see at some point the wind will switch direction, looking like on Friday. So it's pretty consistent cardinal north, at least per Windfinder here, and then switches to almost cardinal south. So that could be a factor. Again, I don't know the specifics of each course, in if the course's wind is going north, are you downwind, crosswind, into the wind, all that stuff. But kind of pay attention to your Friday afternoon tee times, especially if you are playing Showdown. That would be an area that I might want to ignore, is the Friday afternoon starting times. And then Saturday, they don't have the super forecast out yet, but again, you can kind of see just stellar. High of 60, 61, very little wind. And then for the players that make the cut on Sunday, looks exactly the same. Warms up a little bit, but absolutely no wind. So that is the wind forecast that we have for the American Express. Before I forget, I will close out of this and we'll move to Fantasy National, but the rotation of courses that the players will play is essentially in alphabetical order. So if a player starts at La Quinta on Thursday, they will move to the Nicklaus Tournament course on Friday, and then the Stadium course on Saturday. If they start at Nicklaus, they'll go to Stadium and then La Quinta, and then starting at Stadium, then they'll go to La Quinta and then Nicklaus on Saturday. So I wanted to make that or make you aware of that. That is the rotation of courses for this 54-hole cut tournament. But as we just saw from Wind Finder, there looks to be no wind. Maybe a little bit if it picks up Friday afternoon. But for the other 3.5 days, there looks to be no wind. So since the start of 2022, your top performers in calm winds, make sure you give these players a boost. Patrick Cantlay, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Tom Kim, Jon Rahm, Jason Day, Brian Harman, Tony Finau, Marty Laird, Matthew Neesmith. And a little bit further on down, JT Poston, Davis Riley, Cameron Young. So make sure you give these players a boost in your rankings or higher consideration, since they are the best players in this field in calm winds. Conversely, downgrade these players in your rankings. Nick Watney, Ryan Brim, Sung Kang, Aaron Baddeley, which is surprising considering from Australia, but in 2022 he did not play well in the wind. Richie Wierenski, Charlie Hoffman, Scott Piercy, Andrew Novak, Garrick Higo, Jason Duffner, and on down the line. So make sure you give these players a decline, a downgrade, if you will, as they have not played well in calm winds compared to their peers. So I absolutely wanted to make you aware of that. We take a look at wind a lot. On Wednesday evenings, there appears to be none, so went ahead and brought you the calm weather total performance. But this just reinforces what I think the courses or the tournament in general are going to play, and that's easy. So just as a quick recap before we get into mixed condition model and lineups, your top performers since the start of 2022, when a round has been easy, those players are Tom Kim, Jon Rahm, Patrick Cantlay, Tom Hoge, Tony Finau, Andrew Putnam, Will Gordon, Scotty Scheffler, Brian Harman, and Cam Davis. So again, this is generally one of the easiest tournaments on the PGA Tour with calm winds. I expect players to go even lower than usual because sometimes wind is a factor here. Doesn't look to be the case this week. So I just see a bunch of birdies. So with that, that's a pretty good segue into the mixed condition model that I have made for the American Express this week. The leading metric and filter, 20%. Birdies are better when it's easy. Again, I just see a whole lot of birdies this week. The three courses all have generally played easy to par. 23, 24, 25 under is usually the winning score. The La Quinta course can yield some eagles, but there are just birdies everywhere on the Nicklaus tournament course, even on the Stadium course. Although there are a few holes that are very difficult thanks to the water that is in play on those holes, there are still birdies to be had if you are in play. So 20% in birdies are better when it's easy. Again, matching the same metric that we have done the first 2 weeks for the Hawaiian Double. 10% strokes gained off the tee when it's easy. And while we looked in Microsoft Excel that off the tee in general was below course average, full field course average, it's still important for the extremely top finishers. These are ball striking courses. Because they're easy, you should not have to rely around the green. Of course, putting is going to have to be a big deal, but you shouldn't have to rely on around the green. So off the tee is a big factor. I think this week I've put 10% when it is easy, specifically 15% in strokes gained approach. Again, it's a ball striking course. I'm a strokes gained approach preferred type analyst or player, if you will. So 15% in strokes gained approach. Here is 5% that is fairly speculative, I admit, but I still think driving distance could matter, especially since it's going to be chilly. The golf ball won't fly as far, so the players who can just flat out carry the ball further, I think are going to have a decent little advantage. And we saw that driving distance, while off the tee is less important than the full field course average on the PGA Tour, driving distance is actually very, very much more important. Quite enhanced in its importance to upper leaderboard success. So I do have 5% driving distance. I put it when it's easy. You can certainly just look at driving distance. You could also argue 5% for driving distance on short courses. I just chose easy to par. This course has historically played easy, especially with calm winds. I don't see that changing, so I went 5% driving distance, easy to par, especially since the rough here isn't very penal. So guys might not, or guys that miss the fairway should still be able to play their way to the green. So I just wanted to see driving distance in that regard. 10% greens in regulation for short courses. So that's where I have kind of split some of my metrics here. Driving distance when it's easy, but greens on short courses. Again, you can argue greens when it's easy. Greens in general. I just chose greens in regulation when on short courses. I did want to make sure I looked at something or a few things on short courses. So 10% in greens on short courses. And then to wrap this up, 15% in par threes. We saw from the stadium course that the par threes are extremely important. The Nicklaus tournament course, par threes are extremely important. Now La Quinta, it's more of the par fives. Just because those par fives are so easy, they are good eagle opportunities. But for the most part, par threes are extremely important at the American Express, so 15% full there. Instead of looking at all par fives, we talked about it all week, 75% of the par fives fall between this range here from the three courses at the American Express, and it is a massive amount of difference in terms of correlation between this length and the 550 to 600. So I went 15% at this specific range of par fives, 15% at all par threes. I didn't feel comfortable singling out 150 to 175 or the 200 plus. I just went with all par threes. And then to finalize the mixed condition model, I have 5% in all of par fours. I did separate the 400 to 450 and put an extra 5% there. P, thanks for jumping in chat. And if you missed the intro, thanks again for getting a hold of me via social media. I believe I fixed the settings for videos on the channel and to let subscribers know. But definitely wanted to make sure I gave you a thanks for getting a hold of me and making me aware of that. But how has your week been? Hopefully you are ready for some DFS. Do you have any wagers in? All of that. So thanks for joining. You could certainly argue to put a little bit more percentage here in the 400, 450, since they are the most important range of par fours. I just kind of ran out of percent, especially since I wanted to make sure I put 5% in driving distance. That's kind of my little niche for this week. I think par threes are going to be important. Par fives of this range are important. If there are downfalls, one of the immediate things that probably come to mind, there's no putting metrics in this. I just don't feel that putting is going to be all that important to have upper leaderboard success. Now, if you want to find the winner, then maybe. But I'm, for DFS purposes, I'm just trying to find guys who are undervalued and, little or slightly owned, all of that stuff, to where we can find some leverage on some of our contestants. So I don't think putting is going to be that big of a factor in terms of needing upper leaderboard success. But that is one potential downfall. If there are proximities, total procs, or say the 150 to 175, that's the most important approach range here at the American Express. If any proximity matters, I'm going to be light and cold to that, so I don't have any there. The only other thing that I've thought about is that if I have, say, driving distance and this specific filter to it off, if driving distance when it's short courses matters, or if it's greens when it's easy matters, I could have mixed the metric and filter. Those are the three things that I'm thinking I could be weak to, or that could be a downfall of this mixed condition model as constructed. But I do feel pretty good about it. Like I said, it's easy, so I wanted to make sure I put a whole lot of emphasis in birdies or better. It's a ball striking tournament, ball striking courses. Made sure I put emphasis on that. And the par threes and the par fives are very important. So with that, let's go on over to my rankings for this week. I will change the view for you. My top 10 for the American Express this week goes as Siwoo Kim, last week's winner at the Sony, number 1. Jon Rahm, number 2. Tony Finau, Cam Davis, Scotty Scheffler are my top 5. Andrew Putnam, Patrick Cantlay, Tom Hoge, Emiliano Grillo, and Cameron Young round out my top 10. Now, I'm not picking Siwoo to win back-to-back weeks. That's not what I'm doing. The metrics just love him. We talked about it last week. It was a little bit surprising for me that he was so high in last week's rankings, but especially after the performance that he had at the Sony, where he gained 8+ strokes on approach. He's number 2 in strokes gained approach since the start of this PGA Tour season. He's top 20 on birdies or better when it's easy. Top 20 in par threes, and we've talked all week how we think the par threes are going to be important. If there's one downfall, if you will, for Siwoo of the metrics that I've put in, it's driving distance, but it's not mandatory. It's absolutely not mandatory here at the American Express. It certainly helps, but there's more than one way to get around at the American Express. And of course, Siwoo's always going to rise because there's no putting in this mixed condition model. But number 1, he's also getting helped by the fact that he's actually pretty middling owned. And he has played this course very well in the past 5 years. Jon Rahm, number 2, he's probably who I would put number 1 overall. Former champion here. Number 1 on easy courses, at least in getting birdies. Now, the irons haven't been great, but it's Jon Rahm. I think those will get sorted out eventually and probably pretty quickly. Tony Finau, Cam Davis, who I'm very, very high on. I'm pretty upset that he is sitting at just a shade under 20%. I am very high on Cameron Davis this week. He generally plays easy courses very well. And Scotty Scheffler, for as much as I've been lukewarm on Scotty Scheffler, I think this is a pretty good spot for him this week. I do like Scotty Scheffler, especially at low ownership for the 10,000s. Moving into the bottom half of my top 10, Patrick Cantlay, probably the leader in strokes gained total per tournament. Now, the strokes gained total leader in the past 5 years has been Adam Hadwin, down here. But per tournament, it's probably Patrick Cantlay. You can see his course value here. He's played, I don't think he has a finish outside the top 10, 2 podium finishes. He's also tied with Jon Rahm on easy courses. He just loves them. Tom Hoge, runner-up last year, number 1 in approach since the start of this PGA Tour season. Also does very, very well when it's easy. Grillo, anytime you don't have putting, he's going to rise. And Cameron Young, with this being a ball striking and a lot of off the tee, he has risen quite a bit as well, even though the one time he has played this tournament, it was not a successful one. Okay, so there's a look at my top 10 and a little bit of an explanation to them. Let's go ahead and sort on this price board and see if we can find some values here. Largest, smallest, there we go. Okay, so in the 10Ks, you have 5 players: Jon Rahm, Scottie Scheffler, Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, and Xander Schauffele. As you can see from the rankings, there's one player that I'm out on, and he's still rated very high. It's Xander Schauffele, but I'm just out on him. The withdrawal at the Tournament of Champions gives me pause, gives me concern. I will lose to Xander if he plays extremely well, but I want to see a full tournament of health before I reinvest in Xander Schauffele. Otherwise, all 4 of these players are great. I love every single option up here. As you can see, 2 of them are getting a whole lot more love than the others. But, I mean, we talked about each of them in the top 10. So if I had to rank these players, I'm actually going to go Jon Rahm number 1. I think I would put him at number 1 overall, even though Siwoo Kim is there. The metrics are probably a little bit of recency bias based on his win last week. Certainly deserving to be very high in the analytic rankings, but I don't know about number 1. But Jon Rahm, I'm going to put him at number 1. I think, I just think this suit sits well for him. And at 15% ownership, it's high, but 5% less than Cantlay, 5% less than Finau, and he's already won the Tournament of Champions, so the form's there. So Rahm is my number 1 player in the 10Ks. I actually think Scheffler is going to be number 2. A lot of it being that he is the lowest owned of all of these players. Again, I think this is a pretty good spot for Scottie Scheffler. There's nothing wrong with Tony Finau or Patrick Cantlay. There's other chalk that I want to take. That's why I'm a little bit more hesitant to use them. But I absolutely would and will this week. I'm just going to have more of Rahm and Scheffler because I want to try to find a little bit of uniqueness. Between these 2, I would go Patrick Cantlay personally, even with the equipment free agency and all that stuff. I think he knocked the rust off at the Tournament of Champions. I expect him to play pretty well this week. And then, Tony Finau's been red hot for the past 6 months. So, and he's played this course well. But I do think in the 10Ks, I'm going to go Rahm, then Scheffler, Cantlay, and Finau. All 4 good plays. I would not blame you one bit for playing Cantlay and Finau. Like I said, I'm going to play them myself. I'm just going to use more of Rahm and Scheffler to be a little bit unique. I like some other chalk elsewhere. And then I'm out on Xander. Again, just prove health. I'm wary of the withdrawal from the Tournament of Champions. It was a back issue from what I have read. So that gives me quite a bit of concern. Just prove health and I'll reinvest. Moving to the 9s, we have Sung Jae, Will Zalatoris, Tom Kim, Sam Burns, Brian Harman, Siwoo Kim, Cameron Young, and Aaron Wise. Again, Siwoo number 1 in my rankings by calculations, number 1 analytically. Again, probably a slight overreaction to the win last week, but the irons have been fantastic. He has been very, very good at hitting greens, especially on short courses, number 8 in that regard. Anytime there's no putting, he's going to rise. And he's actually middling owned. I think probably a lot of contestants are, or at least in the analytics community, the fantasy national community, probably a little gun shy considering all the media. What's the word I'm looking for? Things that you have to take care of after you win. I understand it. I get it. But if he's going to sit at 10% and he's the number one player in my model, I'm going to use Siwoo Kim. Again, I don't expect him to win, but he's played this tournament well. So I don't see any reason why that would change. Elsewhere in the 9Ks, I think this is a pretty good spot for Cameron Young. Again, this being a ball striking course, you see that he takes advantage when it's easy, and he's 8th in off the tee when it's easy. This is getting cut off. Shucks. He's 3rd in driving distances. The driving distance, he's 3rd. I think this sets up well for Cameron Young as well. Again, pretty high ownership. Little disappointed with that, but it is what it is. I like Cameron Young here. Tom Kim, the miscut at the Sony was a little shocking. He has played this event one time. It was atrocious, so that's why the course value is so bad. But everything says this lines up well for him. And I'm going to go with the analytics here. Even though he is quite chalky, I'm going to use some Tom Kim. His win at the Wyndham is a lot like here. Short course, easy. Now, those greens were quite slopey. These have some slope to them, not as much, but there's a lot of similarities between Sedgefield and Stadium course, and really all 3 courses, because they're all short, they're all easy. So I like Tom Kim here. And again, even though he's not the longest off the tee, there's more than one way to get around here. I think Tom Kim will be fine. Will Zalatoris, okay, he's played it one time. It was very, very good. Again, I'm just still a little bit nervous about the health, even though he made it through all 4 rounds of the Tournament of Champions. Anytime you're dealing with back stuff, I'm just hesitant. But fire him up if you believe that there's nothing wrong there. Burns, really no thank you. He hadn't played well recently. He just hadn't. Brian Harman's kind of lukewarm. Aaron Wise, not a lot of love for Aaron Wise this week. And he hadn't rated out well the past couple of tournaments, even though normally he does. So something's been going on. He actually is not very good with the length of par 5s here. And those are the scoring opportunities. So he will have to clean that up if he wants to contend. But if you're a regular here, you know that it's a FOMO, so I have my bet on Aaron Wise. But there's a look at what I see in the 9Ks. I think this is a good spot for Tom Kim. I really like Cameron Young this week, even though he's chalky as well. Don't be afraid to use Siwoo. He has played this tournament well, and I mean the irons are fantastic. I don't think he's going to gain 8 strokes on approach again this week, but the irons have been fantastic. He plays easy courses well. He's been good, really good at par 3s. So I don't see any reason to avoid Siwoo Kim. Moving to the 8s. We have Taylor Montgomery, Cam Davis, Andrew Putnam, Sahith Theegala, Tom Hoge, KH Lee, Adam Hadwin, Wyndham Clark, JT Poston, and Taylor Pendrith. Cam Davis, love him. He was one of my first wagers this week. His win at the Rocket Mortgage, again, a shorter course. I don't think it is classified as short, but a shorter course, very easy. You can see he just goes low when it's easy. He demolishes the length of the par 5s here. 3 for 3 in making the cut here. There's a lot to like with Cam Davis. When I mentioned that I'm going to be using a lot of Rahm and a lot of Scheffler, the reason being is I'm really high on Cam Davis. So I don't think I'll be able to get away from the Cam Davis chalk. All things being equal, if you find someone in the 8s that you like, then I think it's worthwhile to avoid Cam Davis. That is a lot of ownership, and he can get pretty darn wayward off the tee. But I just see this as set up pretty well for Cam Davis. Andrew Putnam, a lot of that a lot of his high ranking is the fact that he has played this event extremely well, even though his off the tee metrics and distance are complete garbage. We've talked about it quite a bit this week. There's more than one way to get around here. 20th in greens on short courses, par 4s, 11th, 6th in the specific length of par 4s. He's very good at the length of the par 5s. He might not eagle them, but he certainly birdies them plenty. Par 3s have been spectacular. The irons are good. Like, there's a lot to like with Andrew Putnam, and you can see he's getting some love as well. Tom Hoagie, last year's runner-up, a lot to like there as well. The one name in the 8Ks that I do want to give you that's not getting a whole lot of attention is Wyndham Clark. He has played this event pretty well. I can't say spectacular, but pretty well. He's 15th in birdies or better when it's easy. Now the irons are mediocre. They're fine. He's number 1 in distance when it's easy. And again, this rough is not penal to hit out of. Again, this is a little bit of a niche 5% in my mixed condition model. I get it, but I'm very high on Wyndham Clark because of this. The par 4s are fine. The specific length need to be cleaned up, but he is an off the tee type player. He's also getting hurt by the fact that there's no putting in here, and he's a decent putter. So I like Wyndham Clark quite a bit at 6% in the 8Ks. JT Poston is fine. Plays easy course as well. He plays short course as well. So I think JT Poston is a fine play. I think Taylor Pendrith is fine. He's only played this tournament once. It's a lot like Cameron Young. It's a lot of off the tee to like with Taylor Pendrith. The problem is his irons have been nowhere near Cameron Young's, and that's what's hurting him. But I can see a scenario where Taylor Pendrith plays well this week as well. KH Lee, kind of lukewarm. The specific length of par 5s, a little worrying. And then the specific length of par 4s is worrying. So I have a little bit of doubt on KH Lee. I'm sure I will use him since he is so high in my rankings, but 15th seems a bit high for me. Tagala, okay. Okay. Fair. I mean, 8.3% is pretty low. He's getting hurt by the fact that there's no short game metrics. He's generally a pretty good putter, pretty good around the green. His irons are probably better than this, but I don't know. It's kind of lukewarm on Tagala. And then Taylor Montgomery is finally starting to get some more love. He was getting a lot of love in the fall. I used him to quite a bit of success at the Sony. What little success I had, especially in the week long, was thanks to Taylor Montgomery, and he was pretty middling owned. I think Taylor Montgomery is going to be pretty good, especially again, he's getting hurt by the fact that there's no putting metrics in here. He's a really, really good putter. So if you think putting is going to matter, invest more in Taylor Montgomery. Moving into the upper 7s, and I'm not going to go through each name. There's a lot in the 7s. Highlight a couple of players. Let's talk about Ricky. Ricky has not played this event the best. He's not getting a whole lot of love. I think this could be a decent spot for Ricky Fowler. I think 2023 is going to be a bounce back for Ricky. I really do. When that starts, I don't know. But I do think it's going to be better for him. Again, he's went back to his old swing coach. Got rid of the butter knife irons. I do expect Ricky to play better in 2023. He's been really good at the par 3s, but the specific length of par 5s have been really bad. Close to top 20 in terms of approach. Use whatever narrative you want on Ricky. If you're worried about the par 5s, the fact that he hadn't hit a lot of greens, okay. And then if you want to believe in Ricky, go with the fact that par 3s are extremely important here. The irons have been pretty good since the start of the fall. Okay. I think Ricky would be, if I had to lean one way or the other, I think Ricky will be a decent play. But Ricky's been very inconsistent, so I am still a little gun shy to fire him up. But if I had to take a gander, I think he'd be decent this week. Emiliano Grillo, very, very high. Again, probably a little artificially because there's no putting metrics here. But I'm going to use him 5.5%. This is a ball striking tournament. 12th when it's easy. The irons are good. Par 3s have been good. He's also 11th in par 4s from 400 to 450 yards. He doesn't have a bad statistic. The 68th that you see here is his worst statistic. Again, if you think putting's going to be a major factor, leave Grillo on the sidelines. I don't think it's going to be, so I'll be firing up some Grillo. Grillo will be one player that I lose to as a subset of the belief that putting isn't a big deal. Jason Day, I think, is set up pretty well for this week. Top 10 in irons, top 20 when it's easy, top 25 in the specific length of par 5s. I like Jason Day's spot here, and at 8%, it's undervalued, or you're getting value on him. I think he's being undervalued. I like Jason Day quite a bit. You're not going to be rostering Ricky. I mean, like I said, there's plenty of reasons to and not to. I do think 2023 will be a good year for Ricky. When it starts, I don't know. But this seems like it could be a decent spot with the par 3s and the irons. Patrick Rogers, 7th analytically. Now he's getting hurt on the course value. He has not played this tournament very well, and I don't understand why, because the metrics love him. 48th is his worst metric here. 48th. Now, granted, that's in probably the most important one in irons, but 48th isn't bad. It's still good. He is 6th in par 3s. He is 2nd in par 5s of the specific length here. There's a lot to like with Patrick Rogers. If he does not play well, similar to Emiliano Grillo, I will lose. But I'm going to choose to take the analytics over the course value. I just see this as a very good fit for Patrick Rogers. You mentioned Thomas Detry. Okay, I mean, again, there's no bad statistic here. 88th is his worst in greens, and that gives me a little bit of pause if greens are your worst and you're playing a tournament that has small greens. But if you think that the par 4s are more important than I think, he's 4th in par 4s, 2nd in the specific length of par 4s. There's a lot to like with Detry. I am going to hold off on Detry. His best performances were on coastal courses, the Bermuda, the Mayakoba. I want to see what he's like when he gets away from that environment. Plays well, this week or a couple of times, then I'll really start believing in Detry. But his best performances were on those coastal tracks. So I want to see what he does away from there. Let's see. Alex Smalley. Anytime that greens and regulation are a factor, you got to think about Alex Smalley. I like him. I don't like 11%, but I do think this is a better setup for him than the Sony was last week, and I hope you listened last week on avoiding Smalley. But there's a look at the 7K upper sevens. Oh, one more player. I want to make sure I list or talk about Davis Riley for a second. I'm probably too low on him. 9th in birdies or better when it's easy. 11th in the irons. He's got quite a few bad metrics, sure. I think 43rd is probably a bit too low for Davis Riley. At 6.3%, that presents a whole lot of potential value. So I wanted to make sure I list, or at least mentioned Davis Riley. Let's move to the low sevens. And right off the bat, no one in the top 10, but I think there are a lot of values in here. Let's start with Will Gordon. Again, only played this tournament one time, so that's why the number is so high. Missed the cut. Birdies are better. I mean, he goes low when it's easy. The specific length of par fives, surprisingly not good for as much as he is an off the tee type player. He's 13th in driving distance. Again, I just think this is a good setup for Will Gordon, especially since he is a better player than when he played here this first time on the PGA Tour. Lee Hodges, okay, I guess. He's getting helped by the fact that he's only played this tournament once, and he finished third. But I'm a little concerned with the par 3 performance since they're so important here. And he really doesn't go low when it's easy. He's more of a grinder. So I'm not so sure what to make of Lee Hodges this week. David Lipsky, I think, is going to play well, but I'm going to fade him because of this. And it has everything to do with the fact that he's being widely owned. I mean, you see, he's 16th in my rankings. I like Lipsky. He played this tournament well when he played here, and the most important or two most important metrics here at the Amex, he's very good at them. I'm just choosing to lose to David Lipsky because of the ownership. I think there are enough players in the low sevens that I don't have to go to this chalk. Same with Ben Griffin. I'm much higher on David Lipsky than I am Ben Griffin, but Ben Griffin falls into that same category. He's at 14%. Again, understandably why. I get it. But Ben Griffin has been best at par 4s, and I think those are going to be slightly mitigated this week. I think it's about the par 5s and the par 3s. So anyway, and you see Ben Griffin is really bad at the length of par 5s here. So those two I'm going to fade. Yes, Lipsky is very popular, at least from the users at Fantasy National, the members at Fantasy National. He might not be in total, but the Fantasy National members are really liking Lipsky, and generally Fantasy National is pretty close to full contest percentages, give or take a percent or two. And then, of course, really popular players like Ricky, like Jordan Spieth, that kind get more ownership just due to just being popular among the quote casual crowd. But yes, he is quite popular, and he played extremely well last week. So I'm just choosing to lose to David Lipsky. Again, there's nothing wrong with using him. He's 16th. He's probably a good play. He's just chalky. And I'm choosing to take my chalk in Cam Davis, a little bit of Tom Kim, and so on. Even Adam Hadwin, who we didn't really talk about, but I'm going to use Adam Hadwin because he's just played this event so extremely well. So I'm choosing to take my chalk elsewhere. That's mainly the reason why I'm off of David Lipsky. But elsewhere, down here in the low sevens, take a look again at Grayson Sigg this week. I mentioned him last week. He was a middling finish, but a lot of the same reasons apply. He's good, goes and gets birdies when it's easy. And the par 3 performance, sorry, my big, ugly bald head's in the way. His par 3 performance is fantastic. Fantastic. So, on a tournament that really emphasizes par 3s, you like that. Now, the irons have been shaky, but I think there's enough here for Grayson Sigg to fire him up again. Matthew Neesmith's getting quite a bit of love at 10.2%, but it's a fantastic play. He's 6th analytically, 3rd in irons. In this loaded field with the big names that are here, he is 3rd in irons, 2nd in par 3s, and best at the length of par 5s. So I am, again, this is another situation where I'm going analytics over course value, course history. I think this is going to change. I think he's pretty well suited for this course, and I think that starts this week. So I really like Matthew Neesmith, but understand that he is fairly chalky for the low sevens. Not chalky in terms of the entire contest, but chalky for the low sevens. But I do like Matthew Neesmith a lot this week. Russell Knox, if you want to believe in the course history, he has played extremely well here. Number 3 in strokes gained approach since the start of the fall. He's also number 1 with Matthew Neesmith on greens in regulation gained in short courses. It's getting just cut off here to the side. He's number 1 in greens on short courses. So there's a lot to like with Russell Knox as well, especially the course history. I like Nick Taylor. He played extremely well last week. I think that probably continues this week. And he's played well here. Let's see. Elsewhere in the low 7s, S.H. Kim, okay. I was very high on him last week. I don't think this is the best setup for him. But I mean, again, I could see a scenario where he just goes and gets his birdies and bunches. I am worried that his par 3 performance has been really, really bad. But if you want to ride the hot hand, S.H. Kim I don't think would be a terrible play. But that's really it in terms of the low 7s. The last one probably I'll talk about is Callum Tarren. Callum Tarren's a bit of an enigma for me this week. He's fine. Birdies are better. The par 3s aren't great. Specifically, the par 5s aren't great. Actually pretty bad. But the irons are good. Off the tee is good. So there are some important metrics that he's pretty bad at, and there's some important metrics that he's really good at. Depends on what Callum Tarren shows up. And if the par 4s are more important than I think they are, Callum Tarren might be worth a look. But he's also getting a little bit of love, about the same as Matthew Neesmith. So be aware of that. That's a look at the low 7s. In the 6s, I'm going to be honest, I don't see much in at least Fantasy National members aren't coming down here all that much. I see an 8% from Carl Yuan, and I think that is it. Yeah. So there's not a lot going on in the 6Ks, and I'm going to have to agree with them. A lot of times I try to find you all a player or two down here that could provide you a whole lot of value. I just don't see it. And I saw the name Adam Schenk. He's been okay here, but he doesn't go low. He's a grinder. He's not a birdie fest guy. He's more of a grinder. And I don't see it for Schenk. And the off the tee has been poor. He's been good with greens, so that's something. I want to throw 2 names out for you all, and then I'll get to the next 2 players you list, P. But in the 6Ks, I mean, we talked about him, but there's a reason we talked about him. I think Carl Yuan will be a fine play again this week for a lot of the same reasons as last week. The irons are very good. He goes low when it's easy. He doesn't have a bad stat. He does not have a bad stat across here. Now he's got a few that are teetering on the edge of it. 71st, 85th, 80th. They're not below field average. They're pretty damn close to field average. But I think Carl Yuan's going to be fine again this week. But the one 6K play that I'm going to recommend, if you are coming down to the 6Ks, take a strong look at Kevin Yu. Just like Carl Yuan was a bit of a bolder call last week, Kevin Yu is my call this week. Number 4 in the specific length of par 5s. He is an off-the-tee based player. Number 5, especially when it's easy. And for a 6K play like Carl Yuan, he doesn't have a bad stat. He does not have a bad stat across here. Sorry, I'm trying to look across my water bottle. Not a bad stat. So I really like Kevin Yu this week. If the par 4s are more important than I think, then he might struggle a little bit. But a lot of this is the belief that this is going to be more off-the-tee centric. He's fine at hitting greens. He's just got to make some putts. He's rising because putting isn't on here. He's just got to make some putts. But 5th off the tee in this loaded field when it's easy. 4th in the length of par 5s here. If you're coming down to the 6Ks, and I'm not, saying that you need to, because I'm going to be able to show you a lineup that has 2 10Ks and doesn't come to the 6s. That tells you where I think a lot of the value is, as I mentioned, in the low 7s. But if you are coming or thinking about coming down to the 6Ks, really take a look at Kevin Yu. I really like his spot this week. Now, you've put Merritt, Lauer, and Stewart Cink. I actually have been fumbling around. Stewart Cink is about, the lowest I will go. He has not played well here, but some of his metrics are very, very good. Top 20 in irons. 7th at the specific length of par 5s. I don't hate Stewart Cink. I'm a little bit more concerned that since he has played this course and not played it well, Kevin Yu has never played it. So we don't know if he's a good fit here or not, or if he's going to like it or whatever. Stewart Cink has, and he's shown that he hadn't been the best here. But there's quite a bit to like here. So he's been right on that cusp. If I've needed $100 or wanted to find a player that I haven't used yet or is going to be very, very unique, I have really contemplated Stewart Cink. So you and I are along the same lines there a little bit, P. As far as Troy Merritt and Justin Lauer. Justin Lauer, he's only played this course once. So, don't be too afraid of that huge number. But he did not play it well at all. His off the tee metrics have been very bad. Very, very bad. And if this is an off the tee type tournament that I'm seeing it, I'm going to have to suggest to stay away from Justin Lauer. Now, if the par 4s are more important, then sure. But I don't see it for Justin Lauer. Troy Merritt. Do you know offhand? There he is. I was going to say how much is he, but found him. Oof. He's fine at the most important statistics here. He's even, top 25 and off the tee when it's easy. But take a look at these last 4. This one's getting called off, so you don't see the number, but you can see the color. He's nothing but red here at the bottom. Greens, distance, which again isn't the biggest factor. That's why it's only 5%. He's been atrocious at par 4s. I was really high on Troy Merritt in weekend golf for the Sony. Very high on him. I thought he had underperformed based on the first 2 days and his baseline metrics, and then he didn't do shit all weekend, and that's what tanked a lot of my weekend lineups. I'm trying to avoid the recency bias of that. I mean, I can see it. Sure, I can see it. The thing is, even though these are Bermuda greens on 3 of the 4 courses, they don't really play to Bermuda because it's dormant. So putting, again, I just don't see putting being a big factor, and he's generally a good putter. So of the 4 that you have mentioned, I think I would go with Stewart Cink because I've been very close there myself. Troy Merritt, sure. Oh, okay. I mean, I wouldn't go there unless I desperately needed to because I like Kevin Yu so much. But I don't hate it. I mean, everybody in the 6Ks is going to have flaws. But I would go with Stewart Cink, especially since he's only at, 2%. You'd probably be a little bit more owned once you get into the big contests. But I don't think he's going to be anything like 6 or 7. Let's see, way too much red on your Doug Gim. Yeah, it's he's just he's an iron player and his irons haven't been good. Like, where is the traditional Doug Gim? generally he's been an iron player. I like the player. I really think he has potential. But man, if his skill set of iron play is gone, then he really doesn't have a lot. Because he's not long off the tee. He generally finds fairways, but that's been like the Colin Morikawa success. And his irons, they were never Colin Morikawa, but I mean they were certainly within reason of Colin Morikawa. He's been nothing with the irons lately, so he's really fallen away. But yeah, I don't see much in the eight. I don't see much in the 6Ks at all. Stuart Sink's interesting, I suppose, but if you're coming down here, I'm going to recommend Kevin Yu. All right, let's start making some lineups. We've been going for quite a while. Let's talk about some tiers contests, and then we'll make some classic lineups. In Tier 1, we have Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, and Tony Finau. I think it's Jon Rahm. I can understand taking Scotty Scheffler if you want the absolute most unique. And again, I don't know how tiers ownerships compare to classic lineups, but if indeed Tony Finau is this much more chalky than Jon Rahm, take Jon Rahm and don't think about it. I think it's one of these two. I would go with Jon Rahm. If you want what I think will be the ultra unique in Tier 1, then take Scheffler. I'm just not all that high on Tony Finau. He's okay, but that's a whole lot of ownership when you've got Rahm and Scheffler, who I'm pretty high on, and Cantlay always plays this event well. Like that's a whole lot of ownership. Tier 2, Xander, Sungjae, Will Zalatoris, Tom Kim, and Brian Harman. No, excuse me, and Sam Burns. Did I F this up? I did. So let's rewind that. Tier 2, Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, Sungjae, Will Zalatoris, and Sam Burns. No thanks on Will Zalatoris again. I just want to see health. Sungjae has played this event extremely well. Patrick Cantlay is the overwhelming chalk. He's probably the best play. No thank you on Xander. So, I mean, immediately I'm eliminating two people in tiers. I'm in tiers in Tier 2. Xander and Will Zalatoris, I just want to see health. So, automatically I'm down to Cantlay, Sungjae, and Sam Burns. Pretty down on Sam Burns. He has not played well recently, so kind of by default, I'm down to Sungjae and Cantlay. Cantlay is the overwhelming chalk. Again, if you took Tony Finau here, I think you almost have to take Sungjae. By taking Jon Rahm, I think it's okay to take Patrick Cantlay, but I still might take Sungjae. But that's really tough. But I think it's very clearly between those two, and don't even consider the other three. Tier 3, Tom Kim, Brian Harman, Siwoo Kim, Cameron Young, and Taylor Montgomery. If you are not scared of the winning hangover, then I think Siwoo's a fine play. I think this sets up well for Tom Kim. I think this sets up well for Cameron Young. I think I would eliminate Brian Harman first, and there are certainly reasons you could play him. He's played this event very well. Tom Kim probably going to be the chalk. Probably. Yeah, him and Cameron Young both. Like I said, I'm just not scared of Siwoo back to back. I'm not picking him to win, but I'm not scared to use a player right off a win. You know the form is there. And Taylor Montgomery's fine. So I think you can make a logical reason for any of these five. I would eliminate Brian Harman and then go what you feel best in Tier 3. I will choose Siwoo. Tier 4, Aaron Wise, Cam Davis, Andrew Putnam, Sahith Theegala, Tom Hoge, K.H. Lee, Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark is very, very interesting, especially if he's as littly owned as I think. But I'm just going to take Cameron Davis. I've got win wager on him. I think Cam Davis is going to perform very, very well this week. Putnam is also interesting. He has played this event extremely well. He's going to be a bit more chalky than Wyndham Clark. But Putnam's interesting, but give me Cameron Davis. And that's a lot of the reason why I've taken Braum and Siwoo, a little bit of these, less chalky options, because I knew I was going to take chalk in Cam Davis in Tier 4. Tier 5, Adam Hadwin, JT Poston, Taylor Pendrith, Jason Day, Justin Rose, Ricky Fowler, Denny McCarthy. If you think putting's going to be a big factor, then always consider Denny. But I don't have any putting in this, so he's really falling in my rankings. Again, I'm pretty high on Jason Day. We talked about Ricky earlier. JT Poston plays short, easy courses very well, as in, see, last week's Sony, he played well. His win at the John Deere, very, very easy. Not necessarily as short, but, not long either. Hadwin is your choice if you're going by course form. He's the strokes gained total leader the past 5 years here at the American Express. Pendrith is pretty speculative, but I think it's a worthy speculation. I'm going to take Jason Day. But you see, you hear how confident I am. There's a case to be made for a lot of these players. But I'll take Jason Day. Then finally, Tier 6, Callum Tarrant, Ben Griffin, Matthew Neesmith, Justin Suh, Nick Taylor, Bo Hostler, Carl Yuan. A lot of interesting options here in Tier 6. No thank you on Ben Griffin. A lot of it being that he's just very chalky. Callum Tarrant's interesting. I love Matthew Neesmith. He's going to be quite chalky. Nick Taylor has played this event well, and he rates out well. So, again, a very intriguing option. No thanks on Bo Hostler, and Carl Yuan I really like as well. I'm going to go with Matthew Neesmith, but he's probably pretty chalky for Tier 6. So, if you want the non-chalky option, and Carl Yuan's good. Nick Taylor should be pretty good this week. Either one of those two should be serviceable. There's a look at tiers. We're already over on time, and I've got to make some classic lineups. So let's fire through this, shall we? If we're going to be making these lineups that your fellow contestants seem to be making, we're going to start with the chalk of chalk. The most projected owned player is Patrick Cantlay. And from here, do you think they're going to use a 9K? If it is, it's probably Tom Kim or Cam Young. I'm going to drop them down and go Cameron Davis and Tom Hoge. I'm just going to try to make the chalkiest lineup I can. That is a fairly common start. It seems like your fellow contestants are going. And they still don't have to flirt even with coming down into the 6Ks as we saw in projected ownerships. So again, coming down here, Ben Griffin at 72. David Lipsky at 73. That leaves him 8,200, which is exactly Adam Hadwin. He is not the most owned in this area. But, 12%, he's getting some use. That's using up every single piece of their 50,000. 16% is real heavy. Real heavy. Your fellow contestants, again, just in the interest of using different names, they could be something to the effect of, say, Tony Finau, Cameron Young, JT Poston, and you're still at that same roughly 7,500 per. Again, just in the interest of using different names, they might try to squeeze in Taylor Pendrith, Alex Smalley, and then at 72 is Ben Griffin. But there's a few players down here that are getting enough use, like Matthew Neesmith. Ben Taylor's at 10.3%. Not nearly as chalky. Obviously, I used some different names. 12%, still fairly high. If we actually used the players that our fellow contestants are, like, oh shoot, I said Taylor Pendrith. I meant who's up here? There's another player up here. I thought I must have been looking at Poston. Apologies. So it's not Pendrith. Who was this? This was Ben Taylor. So at 82 again, it's Adam Hadwin. let's see if we can't give them some more money here. If they do drop to Carl Yuan, who's getting a little bit of love at 8%, then 83 is KH Lee. Again, not nearly as chalky, but you can see kind of the rough formula that your fellow contestants are making here. But there's also another option, and that's just a complete balanced build. And I see it probably working. Hoagie, yeah, I mean, they might even be able to go like Hoagie, Poston, maybe a Lipsky. 8,000 is Poston. Tom Kim. Why don't we go Cameron Young, Cameron Davis? But this kind of solid 3 to 4 in the 8s, and then maybe grab a 7 or 2. Ben Griffin. Let's see. Lipsky's at 12. Alex Smalley's at 11.1. Then it goes really like the upper 7s are kind of getting ignored. That's why I really like Jason Day, Davis Riley, Patrick Rogers, these players. Let's see, 7,700 per. It'd be like JT Poston and 74. I mean, that's David Lipsky. I know it's the same names, but the kind of this balanced idea as well is a fairly common theme as well. So you got to decide what route you're going. And I'm going to save the double 10K lineup for last. If you're trying to build a somewhat balanced-ish look, maybe you don't come into the 10Ks. If you're not afraid of Will Zalatoris' health, then, by all means, fire him up. I'm staying away from Xander. Like, Sungjae at 14% isn't fantastic, but, compared to Tom Kim, it's 2% less. Compared to Cantley, it's 6% less. Like, I don't mind Sungjae this week. He's played this event 4 times. His finishes are 10th, 11th, 12th, and 12th. Seems pretty consistent. Seems pretty good. And again, if you're going with this balanced-ish look, Tanner Montgomery is getting quite a bit of love at 13.5%, but you could go Siwoo at 92. Again, I'm not afraid to use Siwoo this week off the win. And then in the 8s, Wyndham Clark, right at 80 or 81. We filled up half of our lineup. We still have 7,600 per player. We haven't even begun to touch double-digit percentage-wise. And then in the upper 7s, Jason Day, who I think is set up pretty well. You can take Taylor Pendrith if you want to believe in Ricky Fowler. I love Patrick Rogers this week as well. And then at 7,300, you have the luxury to take a David Lipsky, a Ben Griffin, if you want to take that chalk. But, we're at 7,300. We're not approaching double digits at all in terms of ownership. 7,300. Talked about Lipsky like S.H. Kim. I don't think this sets up as well as the Sony did, but sure. Callum Tarrant wouldn't be bad. Grayson Sigg, Matthew Neesmith. Like, I'm just going to use Matthew Neesmith because I'm so high on him. I know he's actually one of the chalkier options. We're not even touching 10%. We're at 9.5% with Sungjae and Siwoo. Siwoo won this event 2 years ago. Don't forget that. He won this event 2 years ago. Wyndham Clark, Balmer, and in a tournament that I see as off the tee, centric. Jason Day's been playing a lot better lately. You always have to worry about the withdrawal and the health, but I'm not scared this week for Jason Day. So that's one look at a balanced-ish lineup that you could go. But the double 10K lineup that I've been going, that I've really, really liked, it's a bit more chalky, but I'm banking on the fact that I'm using 2 10s and a whole bunch of lower 7s being unique. I said it. I think he's the number 1 player in this field. it's John Rahm, and I'll go with Patrick Cantlay. But you can really do, you might be pushing it if you go Scotty Scheffler, but Finau would fit here. If you're not scared of Xander would fit here. Sung Jae, Will Zalatoris, whatever. These top priced guys, you can fit two of them and still not have to come into the 6Ks. Now, again, using Cantlay is the most projected on players, jumping this projected ownership. Again, I'm reiterating the fact that I'm hoping that using these two with the specific, 5 to 6 players I would consider in the low sevens is going to make you unique. I mentioned that I didn't have to come into the 6Ks, so I won't. But I've absolutely been using Kevin Yu in this. This is what I would do, but I mentioned that you didn't have to come into the 6K, so I won't. Right at 7, again, Ben Taylor's getting some love. Nick Taylor at 7K. Matthew Neesmith at 71. Grayson Sigg at 71. Shoot, depending on where you go in your in what direction. If you don't use Rahm, the most expensive. If you don't use Cantlay, shoot, you could probably fit at 8K like a JT Poston, Taylor Pendrith if you're there. Like me, I would go, and I'd probably maybe adjust one of these guys and bump them up and not leave 300 on the table. But you see that's 10.5%. You've got Rahm and Cantlay, who we've talked about plenty this week and tonight. Griot's speculative, sure. But at 5.5%, I'm willing to take that chance. I think Grayson Sigg is going to be fine this week. I'm really high on Matthew Neesmith. And Taylor's in good form. So that's another version of a lineup that I've been making consistently this week, is the double 10 and still not having to come into the 6Ks. And then I think finally one of the last little bits of a lineup that you could do, I'm not in love with it, but you could do it, is just go, supreme ultra balance and not even touch the low sevens. Do something to the effect of maybe Cameron Young, Cameron Davis. This is pretty chalky, but like Tom Hoagie would probably come into here. Andrew Putnam is kind of chalky, but I understand it with the prior course form. So like Tom Hoagie's a lot of chalk here. Maybe if you don't want to be as chalky and you want to save some amount of money, you could go Adam Hadwin, who I don't hate. Again, the course form. Again, in the upper sevens, or maybe even a low, right at 8K, you can go JT Poston. And then you have, I've used Patrick Rogers, maybe Davis Riley. Like I said, I might be a little bit too low on Davis Riley. 77. Shoot, look at here. You got 8,200. You could still fit in a Wyndham Clark, Taylor Pendrith. If you're along that line, you could maybe move up on one of these guys if you don't want to take the extreme chalk of Cameron Davis, although I would. Maybe you bump Cameron Young to a Tom Kim. That leaves you at 78, which is Patrick Rogers, Ricky Fowler, Griot, Thomas Detry. I don't hate Thomas Detry either this week. Again, this percentage is getting bumped from the fact that you're using Cam Davis and now Tom Kim. But I think this would be a fairly unique looking lineup that you're not even flirting with the low sevens. But put it in the comments. What kind of wagers do you have this week? My betting card will definitely be out later tonight. I've got some lineups to finalize and input into DraftKings. Again, that's just where I play. But definitely want to hear from you all. What kind of wagers, what kind of lineups did you play? Who did you fade? who was your go-to, all that. But thanks for tuning in, joining, watching and listening. P for jumping in chat and for letting me know about the video settings for the YouTube channel. Really do appreciate that. For everyone that supports the channel, watches, subscribes, comments, I always appreciate it. Friday night there will be a chill stream. We'll do probably just round 3 Showdown. Since it's a 54-hole cut, we won't be able to do the weekend golf. So I will do some just specific round 3 Showdown. That might be pretty fun. Take a look at each individual course, see how they've been playing, see if we want to target AM, PM, or front 9, back 9. So that'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday evening. For all of the wagers that you've made this week for the American Express, for all of the DFS contests you've entered this week for the American Express, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.